Suffering from anxiety, pain, aching muscles, and poor circulation? A simple bath can fix this. Our herbal bath formula is known to correct these issues. Visit our store at www.blacksunrise.com/herbs page. Remember to spell sunrise SONRISE. And you can also leave us a review. To today's Global Black News. And in today's segment, we feature an article from Gambia in West Africa. But first, I would like to thank all the subscribers, all the supporters. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the videos. And most importantly, thank you for supporting and also posting your comments. So please remember, in order for us to keep doing what we're doing, we need you to comment, we need you to like, share, and subscribe. Once again, thank you for liking our videos, sharing, and subscribing. Okay, so today's Gambia article was taken from igambia.org, and the title of the article is UK Pedophiles Disguised as Philanthropists Only to Sexually Abuse Poor African Children. The article was posted on January 20th, 2020. I don't take pleasure in reading these articles. This article was not on Black Sunrise, but when I read it, I was just so horrified that I was just like, you know what, you gotta cover this. And while I'm reading the article, I'll stop and pause and give a little bit of a commentary. This is tragic. Evidence and findings of recent studies indicate that sexual abuse and commercial sexual exploitation of children in Africa is a growing phenomenon across the continent in the face of sex tourism. This sexual abuse and exploitation of children in Africa by British and other European tourists who disguised themselves as philanthropists or friends of the family under weak laws and poor child protection mechanisms across the continent continue to damage what's supposed to be the cream of the continent. That is the children, right? Tourism contributes immensely to the economy of the continent. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, travel and tourism contributed $194.2 billion to the region's economy, representing 8.5% of the continent's GDP. The sector contributed 24.3 million African jobs, or 6.7% of the total employment. 71% of tourism spending across Africa was leisure-driven and 29% business-driven. Stick a pin in that. To this end, most economies of African states to a considerable percentage rely on tourism as a key source of income. In the Gambia, tourism amounted to almost 20% of the total GDP, but it has also exposed some young Gambians and other West Africans in the Gambia to prostitution and homosexual encounters in exchange for cash. Some got infected with HIV as a result. The local authorities are not doing enough to tackle these negative externalities of tourism. In addition to the above mentioned, many African states are being targeted by Western pedophiles who are exploiting both the poverty and lax law enforcement to abuse children. Several reports have recently pointed to this heinous crime. There are many factors that contribute to making African children vulnerable to abuse by these sick British and other European pedophiles. Poverty as being underlined as a major contributing factor. Sorry, that was just a typo in the article. Coupled with poor law enforcement and the culture of sexual taboo on the continent. Consequently, Children who fall prey to these pedophiles found it difficult to first report the matter to their parents or guardians. Sexual abuses of children are a rare activity in some modest African societies such as the Gambia. This is hard to stomach. Thus, some parents naturally find it absolutely normal for adults who have a friendly relationship with the family, especially tourists, to move about with their children without the supervision of an adult family member. Stick a pin in that. Sometimes these tourists can be seen moving with local children on beaches, hotels, and restaurants. Oh my God. This is crazy. Sick European pedophiles who have the ignoble agenda of sexually exploiting children take advantage of this hospitable nature of the Africans to execute their agenda. Perhaps the biggest underlying cause of the child abuse, once again, is poverty. European pedophiles very much often approach families of poor, vulnerable children and offer to assist them in the form of sponsorship and with the assumption that these tourists are good Samaritans. The high level of trust they hold for these tourists, coupled with some ounce of naivety, tends to prevent some parents from recognizing the true intentions of these predators. Recently, a British tabloid reported that tragic Gambian children are being sold to British pedophiles for as little as £2 by their desperate parents. This report grossly lacks ample facts to support the misconception that Gambian parents are in fact knowingly selling their children to European predators. As the story suggests, the British reporter, and I wouldn't trust them either, seems to have concluded his story just by taking some pictures of old white men walking around the hotel areas with local children. Instead of interviewing at least one or two affected families, the reporter only interviewed one Lamin Fati to come to the conclusion that parents are selling their children. There is no denying that European pedophiles are operating in the Gambia, but equally blaming the parents as culprits is nothing at a time when Afro-Brits are relocating back to their ancestral lands. These parents are victims of their own naivety, and the only people to blame here are European criminals and local authorities. Estimates previously had put the number of Britons with a sexual interest in children at around 20,000. God damn. This is unbelievable. One unpublished estimate, which law enforcement did not seek to rely on, put the number at 40,000 adults. Okay, take a deep breath before you break something. First pin. Just take a deep breath. Now, this is such a complicated issue, because many of these countries rely on tourism as an income generator towards their GDP. So again, this is not a bash on their tourism sector. Okay, within that tourism sector, this is the dark side, the sex tourism. Now, the government doesn't earn money from sex tourism, but the article does state that sex tourism at times comes with part of the tourism. So you have the above ground legal activities and then the below ground or black market activities, which is the sex tourism. And unfortunately, in this case, the child trafficking. Okay, so that's the first part. So we see that 200 billion travel and tourism on the continent contributed to 200 billion to the region's economy. Okay, and that is a good thing. I am not touching the tourism sector because it's a very good, stable sector. It provides jobs to 24 million Africans, and we cannot totally disproportionately. That is not what I am doing. So again, kudos to the African governments for having a great tourism sector. 71% of tourism spending across Africa was based on leisure, and then 29% on businesses. So that these are astronomical numbers, and this is excellent. So we want to separate the two. And what we're looking at specifically here is that within every country that has a tourism sector, there's the black part of it. And unfortunately, the black part, the dark parts of the tourism sector is the sex tourism, and the most heinous part is when children are brought into this mess. Now let's get on the topic of the children, and this is just my perspective. Again, kudos to the African government for building a very strong framework for their tourism sector. In no way, shape, or form are we discussing the greatness of the African tourism sector. We want it to grow, we want it to multiply. And we want to say kudos to the government for laying proper framework for that to happen. What we are specifically looking at is the sale of children using the tourism sector as a means. But in this case, this wasn't a part of the tourism sector. What we read from the article was that European philanthropists, not all of them, but many of them go into philanthropy to Africa, and their organization is a front for child trafficking, because that's what the article is saying. Okay, so I just don't understand how they connected European philanthropists to the tourism sector when they're actually philanthropists on the ground in the country. So before we go into the semantics of this article, the first thing we need to look at is that what they're doing is they're opening up NGOs in their country to get access to the African continent. And the NGOs are a front for them to get into families who have children. I am not saying all NGOs. I am relating this to the article, okay? Because it says that what they discovered was that philanthropists were using their philanthropy to buy children for $2 and then sexually exploit them. Any of you who have been following the Jeffrey Epsteins and the Edward Heath and the Jimmy Savile and people of this like a Nixium cult know that the trafficking of children is international. For example, the busting of the airplane ready to leave the Chadian runway with 200 babies. I mean, they were literally, some of them were crawling on the ground, babies. And the plane was set to leave the runway before a government minister stopped the plane from leaving. And guess who they busted? They busted a philanthropist organization from Spain who chartered a jet to dump African children in France to God knows who, and that was 200 children. Let me say this again. Let me say this disclaimer again. This is not in any way, shape, or form to discredit the brilliance and hard work of the African governments for laying a good framework for tourism. This has nothing to do with tourism. What we are seeing here from this particular article is that pedophiles, international pedophiles, are seeing or learning about loopholes in the African laws within each country that allows them to build international NGOs where they can enter the African continent, and the NGOs allow them to service people who are poor in villages, and that gives them access to children, because as they're servicing them, the families begin to trust these foreigners and trust them with their children. I said this before, and once again, I was ridiculed for saying this. I said there needs to be a law on the African continent and in black countries. No foreigner should be seen with African children, not even with their parents around. And I was ridiculed, I was called racist, I was called all sorts of stuff. But look, okay, I get ridiculed when I say things like no African child should be with a foreigner going anywhere. I don't care if it's your church, I don't care if it's your mosque, I don't care if it's religion, I don't care if it's business. Children should only be around people who are either their family or friends of the family that the family knows and trusts. Not a foreigner that is coming from some country more powerful than yours, and you just give them your children because they gave you some slippers or they gave you some bags of rice. Here's the other part of this article that's astounding, okay? And I said this again. African people, I notice, are extremely hospitable. They're not suspicious people first. They're extremely hospitable. And I said this again, and I got bashed again. And I said, when it comes to people, given your history of foreigners and of foreigners abusing and misunderstanding your hospitality, okay, especially foreigners who don't look like you, given your history, you should be wary of foreigners bearing gifts. And the last thing you need to do is put a minor in the hands of a foreigner that you don't properly know. African hospitality is great. But you have to remember that hospitality to predators is not seen as good conduct. It is seen as weakness, and weakness to be exploited. I'm going to reiterate this again. It should be illegal across all 54 states on the African continent, and mind you, the Caribbean and Latin America, heck, everywhere. Unless you are a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, friends of the family, or the family, you should not be seen trotting around town with little black babies, going into hotel rooms. I mean, I'm like, what planet am I on? Going to hotel rooms with 2-year-olds. I mean, can anyone help me? Like, this, I can't. Okay, let me try again, because this is just beyond shocking, but not shocking at all. And I'm not going to go into the details of what happens to these children. Go do your research and listen to the victims. Listen to the victims with the Dutroux case in Belgium. Listen to the children in the Hampstead case in England. Listen to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Listen to the victims who escaped those underground bases. Listen to their horror stories. Listen to Kathy O'Brien. Listen to Arizona Wilder. There's enough people out there who tell you. Listen to this woman down from Australia. I forgot her name. So excuse me, I forgot her name. One of the biggest cases in Australia. Listen to the victims who, some of it came through religion. The people, they were predators and they put on a priest garment, or they dressed and spoke like a pastor, and it was used to traffic children. Listen to the victims. Now, do I blame Africans for their naivety? No, hospitality is a great thing. But within hospitality, your hospitality, there should be rules. Let me give you an example. I was recently watching a video of an expat that was in a black woman that was in the northern part of Ghana, and I love watching her videos. And she was doing a traditional dance, but because she's kind of thick, she started jiggling a little bit too much. So they were like, no. But they immediately stopped her. And I just laughed and I chuckled because, she's thick, and when she dances, she's going to shake. So, but they stopped her. But what I find funny is that they'd stop her for that, but then have someone who's a foreigner ride all over town with a 2-year-old child. Let's go deeper into this. You would say women should dress appropriately and cover their bodies. Okay, fine. That is your culture. But then you'd give a 2-year-old child to a foreigner to go to a hotel room? You would say homosexuality is wrong. Okay, that is your culture, and I agree with your culture. But then you take a 2-year-old child and give it to a foreigner to go to the beach with and spend the night in a cabana? Am I criticizing the people? No. What I'm saying is your culture of hospitality is second to none. But Africa, your culture of hospitality has gotten you into so much trouble. It has gotten you into 3,000 years of problems. It is time to reform some areas of hospitality. And one of the areas of hospitality is that you need to strengthen your laws around who can be seen with children. And that includes inside your religious institutions. Children should only be around their families and trusted members of society. When we read the article, sexual abuse of children is foreign. This is what they said. They said sexual abuse of children is so rare in these African countries that it's foreign. It's a foreign understanding. They can't even think of someone wanting to have sex with a child. It's that foreign to them. So they think, if the thought of having sex with a child is so foreign to them that they think no one else does this. That is the divergence in your hospitality. Okay? So you have to do a better job at reforming your culture of hospitality as it pertains to children. That I will give you fault for. But I commend you on your hospitality. You lose a couple of points because you need to reform the way in which you engage with foreigners. Africa, every time you engage with foreigners, people always end up in slavery. Okay, so there's some reformation. Now, here's the other thing. Now, they were able to look at the lax laws and the loopholes in the laws. And these predators know that they can't be seen because the laws are stringent, even though none of them get prosecuted. The laws are more stringent in the West between adult and child relationships with children. Okay, so what do? They say, look, these African countries, they're so naive. I come and I give them some bags of rice and some milk, and they give me their children to go hang out with on the beach. Come on, guys. There needs to be a law saying it is straight up illegal to be seen with any African child. Case closed. And you could determine what the age bracket is. I would say 18 years old. Okay, because what we're seeing now is that they're saying that the foreigners are infecting the Africans with AIDS. But here's what the media will turn around and say. The Western media is not going to say foreigners from the West are infecting Africans with AIDS. You know what they're going to lie and say? The Africans infected the pedophiles with AIDS. That's also in the article. They're saying that they're coming and infecting the local Africans with AIDS, and not local Africans, African babies. So unfortunately, I had to bring this article, even though it's not on Black Sunrise. You can find the article in the description link. And again, let's do a little bit more stringent child management systems. You can even have village laws. You don't even need to be seen with a child. The relationship of foreigners with a village should be adult to adult, not some foreigner from God knows where with no 2-year-old child half naked going into hotel rooms. I mean, I don't know what to make of this article. Anyway, guys, and I'm not trying to shame any Africans. What I'm trying to show you is this. Your hospitality and your graciousness keeps getting you into have places where tourists and foreigners cannot go. They also have rules. Foreigners and whatever can't be seen with no Saudi child or no Egyptian child. You understand? Simple rules like this. And you don't have to wait for the government to do it. Okay, guys? So I want to make clear that I commend the African government on their excellent growth in their tourism industry. This has nothing to do with the tourism industry because they're not coming through tourists. Because as a tourist, that's not how they're getting close to the children. They're coming in as NGOs and charitable organizations. And that is what allows them to get close to children. And I'm not telling the government how to go about dealing with that. All I'm saying is a simple rule like when you come to this country, your relationship to the citizenry must be adult to adult, not adult to a minor. All right? Please don't make me have to read one of these horrible articles again. And then, again, some of the people you wanna go YouTube is the Dutroux, Dutroux case, the Dutroux case in Belgium, Edward Heath, Jimmy Savile, Kathy O'Brien, Arizona Wilder. There was a notorious case. I actually interviewed her on my channel. You can go back and listen to her. There's a notorious case. Matter of fact, notorious cases coming out of Australia. She actually sued in the courts. Why can't I remember her name? Her name is on the tip of my tongue. Fiona Barnett. Fiona Barnett. You can look up the Hampstead case if you want to have an idea of what happens to these children. Then there's the infamous Epstein, who got a one-way ticket jailbreak card to Israel that they swear up and down Jeffrey Epstein is dead with no pictures of his face. The Jeffrey Epstein case was a massive international child trafficking ring. And one of the things they refused to talk about was the black children that were trafficked and never seen again. And many are too afraid to come out. All they talk about is the blonde-haired white children that he trafficked. But the underground reports are saying it was thousands of black children he disappeared. In the United States, 465,000 women and children, black women and children go missing annually. The complete total of women and children that disappear, children in the United States is at 1 million. 1 million European children disappear every single year. Africa, stop making it easy for this to happen. Okay? All right, guys, please don't let me have to do an article like this again. This is a horror story. Anyway, thank you for joining us. You can read the article in the description box. Do not post a comment asking me where the article is. It will be in the description box. Guys, share this video, like this video, and please let us help our African brothers and sisters to have a more worldly perspective of and less naivety when it comes to foreigners, because the Africans they're very hospitable, but that hospitality keeps getting them into trouble. All right, have a great day and thank you.